Welcome along this Monday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, aren't you, with their New Year's resolution in your back pocket, completely not broken over the course of the weekend. How are you getting on with yours?
Very well.
Sorry,
how am I getting on with my New Year's resolutions? Not really. My New Year's resolution, I think, for everybody on, the 6th of January is start going to bed earlier. It's happy bio-clock day to everybody who slept for 1 or 2 hours last night.
Yeah, and then I couldn't get sleep at all last night.
Neither could I.
And I wasn't even watching the NFL. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch highlights tonight. First day of work back for a while. It's always like, what are you doing? I mean, I've been here the whole time. But anyway, that's a different story. I couldn't sleep.
For anybody who's waking up this morning disappointed that they stayed up all night watching the NFL, don't worry, you made the correct decision.
You did.
Because I went to bed before the second game kicked off, and I managed to actually see the full-time score before I went to sleep, before I eventually got to sleep. So that was hugely pointless activity, trying to put the head down before that point. But we will be on track eventually.
It was the excitement of coming in here to tell everybody about the glorious world of sport that we're looking forward to for the next decade, right? The start of a new decade, it's a big thing.
It's the start of a new decade.
It only happens 3 or 4 times in your life if you're unlucky, and
you play your cards right.
7 times max.
And it feels fresh. It feels new. It feels like everybody has just wanted to hop on a brand shiny new green bandwagon of some description.
Yeah.
And Irish football has come along and delivered us this. They gave us the hope in 2019 that this new thing would bring us into a golden age. And then, lo and behold, the first weekend of football of the decade, this happens. Some great Irish performances, an Irish hat-trick in the greatest competition in the history of sport. Well, the oldest anyway.
Yeah.
And we're back on track. The decade has started well.
Yeah, and we're all going to have to learn to pronounce Adam Ida, as opposed to Adam Ida, which is what we'd all been pronouncing it until we went and looked up the BBC video.
Did our research this morning. We've also started on the right foot.
Yeah.
We can confirm Adam Ida himself says his name is Ida, not Ida.
Yeah, which is good that we all know that. Imagine how amazing we would feel about the future of Irish football if all that was happening was what was bubbling up in the underage. If there was none of the administrative stuff, right? And maybe the performance of the senior national team was a little bit better, maybe if we qualified automatically. But we can just park the Mick McCarthy for a minute. It's new decade.
The Mick McCarthy thing is definitely going to end.
Well, and Stephen Kenny is very familiar with all these young fellas who are playing really well. I mean, they're not all playing really well, but most of them are playing very well.
And he knows them. He knows them very well.
And wants them to play.
And has been contributed and has been kind of mentioned in the development of a lot of these players. Like just reading up on a bit of Adam Ida this morning. So there was a guy involved with Norwich, Robert Flanagan, who's their former Ireland-based talent scout. He's the guy who spotted Ida at the Kennedy Cup years ago when Norwich initially got their eye in and they thought that they wanted this guy. He said that Stephen Kenny could basically tell him to work his bollocks off or feck off. The change in his work rate and hunger now matches his talent. He really works hard in every game I see, as a result of Stephen Kenny basically treating him fairly harshly, I'd imagine, because the one thing that people said about Ida's game when he was young was that he just lacked a bit of work rate. He had all the natural ability in the world, but just lacked that bit of work rate. Like, this is the sort of one of the many anecdotes we start to hear about the man.
Yeah.
And the work he's done with these young players.
We've got to hope that the international team becomes the be-all and end-all for a lot of these players, because it's going to be harder and harder for them to make it to the Premier League. So if you're a championship player and Stephen Kenny is telling you, you got to shape up or you're not going to play, then you hope that that's going to have an impact in a way that maybe it was more difficult in the noughties for Brian Kerr to tell everybody, or for Chris Hughton at that stage, before he'd been a manager in the Premier League. Maybe not. Maybe that wasn't what prevented that era from being a success, but you would definitely hope that that connection that he has with these young players helps immediately to have an impact.
You would have thought so. Like, what I would always say is that there is a trend developing in football, and it has been for 15 to 20 years now at this point, and it isn't helping the international game whatsoever. They don't pay your wages. Norwich City will be funding Adam Ida's life for the foreseeable future, and it will be hard to wrestle influence away from the club in any position that you're in. That being said, there has been a sort of situation as well with Irish players over the past few years, that successful international campaigns where, like, say, Euro 2016, for example, Jeff Hendrick would have benefited hugely from being involved in an international setup. It's not entirely a one-way street where, your club comes first and your influence on the international team comes as a result of your club. It can work the other way as well, and if these young players realise that they've got a player or they've got a manager and a coach who's helped them successfully to actually get first team starts, then their ear is probably going to continue to be open and listen to this guy.
Yeah, you'd hope so. We're going to speak with Keith Andrews a little bit later on about that. Going to look back across the weekend's GAA. You were at some of the games over the winter break. You saw your beloved Kerry get spanked, right?
Saw my beloved Kerry get spanked by Cork. They conceded like 6-18 to Cork in the McGrath Cup.
I mean, I know, it doesn't matter, right? But at the same time, that'll get Cork just a little bit happy, won't it?
There was a big roar when Cork scored their opening goal. Like, Cork obviously are entering into a National League campaign where they're literally saving their status as a Tier 1 county because they have to get promoted.
Which, let's face it, is exactly what you want. If you're the Cork management team, suddenly every single training session has an impact early on in the year. Suddenly every decision that's being made is going to have an impact. There you go, there's your picture of the old firm.
Just to clarify, the Kerry team had flown on holidays like 2-3 days before that. So
the Kerry team went on holidays.
Yeah. So there was no there was no senior players involved.
This is from a week ago.
But Kieran Sheehan was playing for Cork that day.
I couldn't believe it.
He was back.
Kieran Sheehan was one of my favourite players. It was like, he was sensational. I saw his back and I was like, is he back? And he is back.
He's back. He looked very, very good.
Did he? I'm so excited.
Like, granted, against an 18-year-old fullback.
Look, I'm going to take it. The little breadcrumbs. He was sensational.
Yeah.
Do you have proper memories of like how amazing he was? Now, maybe this is one of those with the passage of time, Andy Reid type situations, but like, I just remember being completely enthralled by his abilities.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that you're starting to sound like Mickey Harte and just a different accent this morning, blaming the AFL for all Cork's ills. Having the absence of Kieran Sheehan was a humongous thing, and then when you hear him coming back, it is this huge boost that they have. Himself and Ian Maguire on that occasion just looked men against boys for sure in those two occasions. And the corner forward that Cork have, I can't remember his first name, my apologies, but Gore is his surname. He looks like an absolutely unbelievable Damien Gore, sorry. But yeah, so Kieran Sheehan fits in nicely with the whole narrative that we've got over the last 12 to 24 hours.
He's only 29.
He's only 29?
Yeah.
So he's got even a year of allowing himself to bed back in before hitting top gear. But this Cork team, we're going to see something good for them in the early section of this calendar year, because they need to be good in the early section of the calendar year. They need to get promoted from Division 3 or else to be playing a Tier 2 championship, barring an upset against Kerry in the summer. But they'll certainly be happy with the way that trend has gone. Like, the other thing, and it's like barring the 4 games of the weekend, like the big story that we come into this Monday morning is Mickey Harte being the latest manager to slam the unnamed GA people who are working with the AFL, Ty Connelly, I presume. And is there others? Is Ty Connelly the only one?
Is there not somebody here who runs the combine for them?
There probably is, in fairness. But Mickey Harte has come out and said that, Colin McShane, he's going to try his best to persuade Colin McShane, or Colin McShane would be doing well to be aware of the lavish lifestyle that comes with being a footballer for Tyrone, and he should definitely consider staying at home rather than going to Australia and following his dreams, and that these people who are former GA men should not be involved in helping funnel Irish talent down under.
But they all went off and had amazing lives for themselves, and they're like, oh, look, you can come aboard there's room in this Hollywood lounge for all of us, which is exactly what you'd hope people would do, instead of pulling the ladder up behind them, right?
For sure, and it's something that we'll get into in the papers as well this morning. Like, over the course of the weekend, like, I'm not sure if you see this, but I know we're kind of doing a quick roundup of everything that happened this weekend. But Ballyhale against Schlottneil, already up there as one of the sporting contests of the year so far. You hate to patronise any team, but when a team is 10-1 outsiders going into a 2-horse race and they put in the sort of performance they put in yesterday, you can't help but kind of venture in that way of moral victories in defeat. Like, a lot of people have known about Brendan Rodgers as the Derry footballer, the great Derry footballer over the last decade or so, or maybe not even a decade at this point. I'll be embarrassed enough to put up my hands and say I haven't seen enough of him play hurling in the Schlottneil jersey over the last few years. But yesterday was one of those opportunities where you're just taken aback by him. That goal that he got late on was Rambo-esque. The problem is that Colin Fennelly was even more Rambo-esque in the way he managed to just dart through players, men hanging off him, and finish that goal late on to kill the contest. It was sublime, and it came down to the fact that Ballyhale have 2 of the best forwards in the country right now. At club level, that will win you everything, and it'll probably be too much for Boris Ali, despite the fact that they will have their own superstar in their ranks.
Oh, Brendan Maher.
Yeah.
Brendan Maher's point with the shinty stick, yeah.
My favourite part about that was, and I'm sure it wasn't deliberate, was that Brendan Maher actually goes shouting to everybody saying, give me a hurl, so that we could all know at home that he did indeed do it with a broken hurl.
I know.
No, I'm only joking. He obviously didn't. Like,
that was, it was just 5 days too late to be included in 2019, which would have been like, can we just give out the 2019 Hurler of the Year award at the end of the year so we can include all of this as well. It's like, I mean, obviously we had a very worthy winner of Hurler of the Year, but when you think back to what Brendan Maher's job was in the Championship, nullifying so many of the opposition's best players, we still haven't found a role. Like, we're going to talk NFL a little bit later on, but the NFL have like loads of awards where there's Offensive Player of the Year, there's MVP, there's Defensive Player of the Year. Like, and they're all equal. Well, the MVP is obviously the most one because I think that's the one you get the truck for. But there should just be more Hurler of the Year awards. There should be a Defensive Hurler of the Year and an Attacking Hurler of the Year.
It's almost as if you've come up with a great item for off the ball this December.
All right, or maybe we could do it retrospectively in January for last year, and
it's a good shout.
That would prove our case, and we can make the case for the whole year and try and affect some change. All about affecting change this year. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning. Sports page is coming your way. We're a minute late with that. It is 7:41 this morning. If you're just tuning in, you're very welcome along. Football with the FA Cup, we'll talk about that. Keith Andrews is going to join us for a quick call about Adam Ida around about 8:15. We'll talk about Mickey Harte and the Club GAA over the course of the weekend at around about 25 minutes past 8 this morning. Sports news with Tom at 8:35. Rugby with Alan Quinlan. An interesting weekend as we build up to the return of the European Heineken Cup this weekend, and not a great weekend for Connacht, and probably starting to pose some existential questions about what happens with Irish rugby. And then we're going to talk with Mike Carlson around about 9:05 this morning. And then Deal or No Deal, the latest iteration of Deal or No Deal, coming your way at 9:15. Time now for the papers.
OTB AM.
All right, going to start with the Irish news this morning because obviously the big news in the GAA world is Harte. GAA should cut all ties with AFL. Now, in fairness to Mickey Harte, this is not something new that he's been saying. He's been saying this about the international rules for a long, long time. I'd say as far back as Mickey Harte becoming prominent at senior inter-county level, he's been saying that the international rules wasn't a good idea because actually the AFL are coming over looking for our best players and taking them. But Harte, GAA should cut all ties with AFL. And then also they've got Kilcoo relishing All-Ireland final against Corofin. So Kilcoo are through after their victory against Ballybowden at the weekend to play Corofin. Corofin, one of the greatest football teams at club level that we've ever seen. But Kilcoo, managed by Mickey Moran, who was the manager of Slaughtneil, when they reached their All-Ireland final as well. And, one of the GAA's great managers, it turns out.
Yeah, he certainly is. That's going to be...
What do you think about McShane?
I think if you're in Colin McShane's shoes and you want to go live a professional lifestyle, you go and do it. So Colin McShane looks at what he's achieved so far, and he's put in the best year of his career to date in 2019, and still you suspect that Tyrone are a good jump away from winning an All-Ireland medal. Now, maybe there are greater things that you have to strive for if you're an inter-county player, because only one county can win SAM in any given year. But perhaps Colin McShane is weighing up his options now and thinking to himself, I will not win an All-Ireland as long as this Dublin team exists, and as long as perhaps this Kerry team is getting better, who knows. But perhaps I look around myself in the dressing room and I can't actually see an All-Ireland medal in this dressing room. Or perhaps it's different to that. Perhaps he doesn't like his job. Perhaps he actually likes travelling and he actually wants to get paid for becoming a professional athlete. And he's now got the opportunity to do this. So fair play to him. Go and test it out. Go see what happens. Because there is nothing the GAA can really offer that will come close to being a professional athlete. I'm sure every GAA player loves playing sport, number one, and doing everything else, number two.
Didn't Kerry have that document that they were issuing to young lads who were being tempted?
Yeah, and fair dues to them for producing that, doing everything within the GAA's power to actually keep them, giving them potential college courses, career options that will allow you to stay not only in the country but in the county and not actually have to go too far away from home to actually provide yourself with a living. Now, I'm sure Mickey Harte is having those conversations, and I'm not sure that Tyrone have an official document. They can do everything, but the one thing they can't do is give you money to play football. The one thing the AFL can do is give you money to play football, and that is where this is what this boils down to.
No, let's just we know they can't officially do that, but that's not true, right? So we know of various hurlers and footballers in the past who have been professional for a year or two. David Brady said that he took a year off from work and ended up being a professional footballer for a year. One of the Clare hurlers at one stage took a year off and was essentially it does happen. There are benefactors out there who will come in and somehow, and I'm not suggesting that Tyrone would ever do this, but the notion that players aren't getting paid to play somewhere around the country isn't really that true, is it?
It isn't, but it's almost like the smoke and mirrors that goes along with that. That you're kind of...
it feels dishonest.
There's a shame about it almost, and that's probably too strong a word.
No, you're right. You're right. Actually, there is a shame about it, isn't there? There's a sense that this can't happen. you know, like, what do you tell people? You know, what are you doing at the moment? Oh, I'm playing a bit of ball. How are you, you know, are you looking after your career? What are you going to do when you're finished doing that? Like, there's no, oh, it's grand to have a pension because I'm being looked after properly. It's backdoor bullshit.
Totally, but there's also the kind of shiny example that the likes of Kennelly's have brought, where they're actually maintaining a sporting career in that professional game in Australia after their game. Like, it's not just kind of a one-stop shop where you play your career, you play your game, you come home with a broken body. There has been a couple of examples of huge success stories. Now, granted, it is weighed against you, but Colin McShane has turned out to be one of the best physical forwards the game has at the moment. So he's in a great place to make it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, let's wait and see, though. It'll be really amazing to see if he does actually make it. Let's hear the interview that Mickey Harte did with the BBC. Have a listen to this.
All I can say is that he has been wooed by some people in the AFL, and I think he's gone out there for a few days to experience what that might be like. There's no final decision made yet of whether he's going to go or whether he'll stay with us, but at the moment he's certainly considering that move.
I'm sure you've been talking to him. Have you tried to persuade him to stay here, that his future should be with Tyrone?
Well, I wasn't actually, I suppose, not persuading wasn't the right word. I was trying to enlighten him to the fact that, you know, there's lots for him, lots of good things can happen for him staying here, and the things that he's going out there to try to do are very much more variable. As you would know, I'm not been a fan of the engagement we've had with the AFL over many, many years now, and I think that's the sad thing about it. It used to be in the past we had unknown Australians trying to woo our players out to their AFL league. Now we have ex-Gaelic players doing it, which really saddens me that that's what we've got now. We've got recruits for the AFL within our own ranks of the GA, and that's sad.
Do you see that almost then like the enemy within?
Well, it's something that you knew was going to happen. All you need to do is get a few players out there first and get them sort of involved to some degree, and we find that most of them come home and haven't made it out there at all, and often don't even play as good a Gaelic football when they get back. But now they've got a different role. Now they can be agents for the AFL, and it's an absolute free gamble for them. If our players succeed out there, that's a cheap gamble, and if they don't, they send them back home to us to see can we continue to play football with them.
It's kind of characterising the players as having no agency in this, like having no brain power, no individual thought process, no desire to go and do something different, right? It's like these people within these ex-GAA players are having a free gamble at it's unusual language to use about people giving an opportunity to somebody to better themselves. I guess it comes out to you don't see it as bettering yourself.
They're not brainwashing these young players. There should be some sort of base of what these players know and what they love about Gaelic football to stop them going if you feel so strongly about the GAA. And maybe that isn't strong enough in a lot of cases, and that's fine too. Like, you can draw a small parallel. I know the Clerken's writing about it this morning in the Irish Independent. A small parallel between this and perhaps players leaving the intercounty fold and staying away from the game, the likes of your Ora McNeilish's. And it's not too dissimilar to this conversation as well, that perhaps there just isn't enough to allure you about the GAA, about being an intercounty footballer or a hurler at the moment, unless you're winning games and consistently challenging at the top table and have a high profile and you can kind of earn legitimately on the side or whatever the case may be. That it's not entirely different to the situation where these footballers are ripe for picking, as I'm sure Mickey Harte might agree with from the AFL, that if there's players dropping off of their own will from intercounty panels, then they are easy targets from the AFL. Now, that being said, the players have their own minds. These are grown adults.
And I think that's exactly right. You couldn't tempt people who didn't want to go if the situation here is perfect. The situation is clearly not perfect. People are leaving of their own free will, and it's all part of the same story. Like, one of the funniest comments underneath there was the Mickey Harte interview on Twitter. One of the funniest comments was, "Well, I'll let him go. At least he'll know when his games are." I was like, exactly. I mean, exactly. All of this is all a fixtures problem, and the demands and the, like, when am I playing for my club? When am I playing for my county? Who's looking after my body? He goes and has a professional career doing something he really likes and, like, might be good at. He might be no good at it, but he'll come back at 25 if he's no good. You know, body broken, you know, all that. Like, really, will they break his body? Or will they actually look after him properly? Because they'll have the best medical, and the players' union are really strong, and like they'll actually make sure that he comes back, if he comes back physically well. Whether or not he wants to play football again will be another thing. And that's a different issue. But that's up to the individual counties to make sure that they're providing a great environment and an opportunity to learn for the players.
Yeah,
right?
but it's also, at the very worst, he comes back a more interesting character. And if there isn't enough about the GA right now to keep him at home, then I think that's a price worth paying.
It screws Tyrone in terms of their ability to beat Dublin, right?
Definitely, but like their ability to beat Dublin at the moment.
Is everybody not thinking the Dubs are there, you know? Cluxton's still not back officially. New manager in. How hungry are the team who've delivered history going to be, really? They're not going to be that hungry, right? Come on. Surely over Christmas you talked yourself into, this is our year.
What you mean when I was watching Cork 618, Kerry, whatever it was?
Yeah, the young lads are great. There's like 2 or 3 of those young lads who are going to fire that away, let their small hatred of Cork flame up so that in the summertime they're punching lads.
Dublin players have spent all Christmas in Bally thinking to themselves, right, time to step out of Jim Gavin's shadow. 6 in a row is on. We're going to do it without Jim. And
I think they've been lying in Bally having their belly tickled. That's what, I mean, they deserve it.
that's all part of the belly tickling process, believing that you can step out of your manager's shadow.
Is it?
I'm sure it is.
Right, we'll come back to that. The Irish Independent this morning, their back page. It's Tip versus Kilkenny all over again. So, Mara Heroics helped Barcelona to All-Ireland final date with Shefflin's all-conquering Ballyhale after Cat's Kingpins survived Schlockneil scare. And so they've got loads of pages on that. They've also got a picture of Adam Ida up there. His hat-trick exploit give reason to believe in a 2020 vision for Ireland. Dan McDonald saying we should all be excited about the fact that there are loads of good players coming through. And then Klopp's kids prove there's still magic in the cup. This is Eamon Sweeney after our Liverpool put their new signings straight in the team. Start the game.
Yeah, Minamino should have scored. Basically headed fresh air with a beautiful cross from the left flank, and should have netted on his debut. Definitely would have been the winner. Instead, Curtis Jones steps up and bags an unbelievable winner. Nothing Jordan Pickford could do, just flailing arm trying to get at something that was just perfectly into the top right corner. This is the same fellow that scored the winning penalty against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup in that crazy 5-5 draw. So he's building a bit of pedigree. He's on BBC after the match, and they're like, so how does it feel, blah, blah, blah. Not even a leading question. He's like, yeah, I've been really frustrated with my game time. Like a teenager comes on, scores in the FA Cup, playing with the best team in the world. He's frustrated about his game time. He's clearly got bags of confidence. You kind of love to see the swagger in a couple of these Liverpool youngsters. And I don't really have a dog in the fight in the Merseyside derby, but there is a sense of black comedy about how the Everton first team got beaten by the Liverpool second team, plus, you know, I guess Joe Gomez, James Milner, perhaps Adam Lallana. They're full-grown adults at least. It's not totally comparable to the Liverpool against Aston Villa game in the Carabao Cup, but it's still hilarious if you're a Liverpool fan, I'd imagine. Most
of my family viewing time at the weekend was spent watching Dancing on Ice. I'm not going to lie. Great excitement in our house about Dancing on Ice.
I did, I'm not going to lie, put it on for a little bit on Saturday evening. Just to see.
Saturday was just the introduction. Sunday was the real thing.
Sunday was the real thing, but Kevin wasn't dancing.
Well, he was part of the group. So this is so you know Michael Barrymore's in it, right?
I do know this.
So Michael Barrymore broke his arm. Look, Tommy, relax, I'm getting there, right? Tommy's like, oh, no. Tommy also big on his Dancing on Ice gossip. So Barrymore broke his arm, right?
In training?
Yeah, in training, like 3 weeks ago. So they had to get a new guy in to replace him. So they got a new guy who comes in, who skates in, and who's like, his introduction to the whole group is he skates in and he's like, I can't stop, and they grab him and he stops, right? And so the group does their big thing last night. And Holly asks the judges, here, listen, you know, you've seen the whole group now for the first time together. Is there anybody who needs to brush up on stuff? And they're like, oh yeah, the new guy. And Kev.
Oh. So he's already lagging behind.
He's on notice. Kev like nods his head and goes, thanks for that. Yeah. No, he smiled through it. He was like, you know, but I was thinking, you know, the Iceland debut, taken off at half-time by Mick McCarthy, you get it out of your system, that's over, and then you shoot forward to the next. Pressure's on.
I didn't know this was about to happen.
I thought he was good. I was like totally biased, thinking, yeah, no fuck-ups there, buddy.
Well, you saw Saturday night, though. Like in the montage, it shows Kev falling about. Like there is no.
They're all falling. They're all falling.
But like Kev's sob story was just how much he's like, I've got hurt so much on a football pitch, but nothing compares to falling on the ice. And then he's like skating over with his partner to Philip and Holly, and he almost lamps himself into the centre as he's trying to get up off the ice. It was very entertaining for the 5 minutes that I watched it, but it will be the full show from next week.
A couple of people fell last night, so you're like, come on, he's got to keep the people who are falling the first week. So just don't fall.
I didn't realise that Sam Matterface is like a commentating montage post.
Does each one, yeah.
So it's there's more sporting elements to this thing than we initially thought.
Serious business. You would hope that just like the random football fans are going to vote for Kev as the representative of football, the way that like the GA basically win Dancing Stars every year.
It's true.
Is it Dancing with the Stars? I mean, is that what it's actually called?
He wanted Ed O'Mahony, then was I don't think
Des won it, didn't he?
Desmond, no, I think he was the same year as Ed O'Mahony.
Was he?
If my Dancing with the Stars Ireland knowledge is correct. I don't think Dennis Bastick went very far.
I'm not watching it. Okay, he's going to win apparently, Tommy says.
Yeah, but you can't vote in Ireland for this.
No, it's a fix. The fix is in. The green vote. They put him in green, they put Maura in green. I was like, come on ITV. You know, there are other colours in our palette.
Let's face it, he doesn't stand a chance against Maura.
Conor Joy says, Colin McShane would probably play 0 games out there, so that's clarity anyway. Grass isn't always greener on the other side. We in Ireland are very quick to stamp on the GAA and ourselves. Who's stamping on the GAA? Who, Conor? Tell us that, Conor. Who is stamping on the GAA and who is stamping on ourselves? Because nobody is. And the fact that he's going to play 0 games out there, I hope he takes that and tattoos it somewhere inside his brain so that when he does actually end up playing and scoring and having a career in the AFL, he can remind you, just very briefly, Richard Sherman, you know, the cornerback who used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, very famous for, you caught me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree. Yeah, absolutely outspoken union leader. Did his own deal a couple of years ago when he signed for the San Francisco 49ers, which are in the same division as the Seattle Seahawks. Negotiated his own deal with no agent and had a load of incentives built in. And at the time, the deal was absolutely crucified by the cognoscenti of American football, going, oh, this is why you need a lawyer. All the lawyers were like, oh, this is why you need a lawyer. What a stupid deal this man's done. He's clearly very clever. He went to a big college, but look at how stupid his deal is. He made all of his incentives, so basically ended up earning about $4 million at the end of the season, and took to Twitter in a 2-hour spree of just reminding everybody who went at him 2 years ago. He'd stored them all up. He kept receipts, he said. I hope Colin McShane is keeping receipts for all of the people who are like, oh, you're never going to make it anyway, which is basically the tone of Dick Clerkin's piece. And he's got a hard road ahead of him, you know, this stage.
Richard Sherman seems like an expert at tattooing stuff on the inside of his brain, which is something that McShane should get good at.
It's brilliant to have somebody like Richard Sherman on a team you support.
Yeah, well,
it's amazing.
I'm sure we'll get into it later on, but like this is your week now. This is where you start telling everybody that, hey everyone, this bandwagon left the station 2 years ago when Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G came on board, and I've been on board. I don't see you wearing your 49ers Christmas jumper this morning.
I know.
Get it on for the rest of the week.
It's not Christmas. I might wear it on Friday.
Back page of the Mirror is My Boy Wonders, Klopp's pride at Curtis and the other Klopp kids who he insists are now ready for the first team. And Troy deal near. Troy Parrott's long-term future at Tottenham looks set to be confirmed, with the club hopefully will put pen to paper on a fresh deal next month. So the Dubliner has attracted interest from Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, but with 18 months left in his deal, he's held talks and could sign a multi-year extension when he turns 18 on February the 4th. He obviously didn't play yesterday. Jose didn't use all his subs yesterday. Troy Parrott was on the bench yesterday, and they needed a goal yesterday, but still, it seems that he is going to put pen to paper on a new deal.
The front of the Irish Times this morning is Munster and Connacht limp back into Europe. That's the headline of Gavin Coakley's piece. We'll talk with Alan Quinlan a little bit later on about the situation. The Heineken Champions Cup resumes this weekend. Claremont versus Ulster is Saturday at 1 o'clock. Connacht versus Toulouse, which is the game we have live here on Off the Ball on Saturday afternoon, is from the Sports Ground at 3:15. On Sunday, it's Leinster versus Leon. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff in the RDS. And then Racing versus Munster at 4:15 is a huge game for Munster in the context of their overall season. And Klopp's kids serve Ancelotti with painful reality check. That's Malky Clerkin's column. His Tennessee defeat looks like the end for Brady and hated Patriots. And rampant Leinster exposed golfing class 54-7 victory for Leinster. But it was a point a minute in the first half when it mattered.
Yeah, was it 19-0 after 19 minutes?
It was 40 at half-time.
That was a 40. Oh, God. That Ancelotti story, did you see the one yesterday or the day before about Ancelotti saying that he held talks with Liverpool post-Brendan Rodgers? Like, imagine how different a place Anfield would be right now had they gone for Carlo Ancelotti rather than Jurgen Klopp. Like, Jonathan Northcroft in the Sunday Times yesterday actually did up a graph of, so on the x-axis you had quiet to passionate, and on the y-axis you had pragmatic to kind of experimental with how you actually promote your team. And at the top right you had Klopp, and at the bottom left you had Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah.
Like, complete polar opposites. And you just, like, that is a sliding doors idea that some Liverpool fans just possibly couldn't even tolerate at the moment. Because, like, we did have fears before Christmas that Everton had got Ancelotti at a bad time. And maybe there's just a situation with the history of his career that he will never be able to overachieve with a team, which is something that Klopp has done to a point. Granted, they've got good resources, but I don't think many Liverpool fans in their wildest dreams could have imagined what's happening so far. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is "Smells like teen spirit" and "Loss of Kane, no excuse," says Jose Mourinho.
The Racing Post, the winning machine, unbeaten Envoy Allen on track for Cheltenham after grade 1 victory at Nace. We'll talk about this with Tom Malone around about 8:35 this morning. And Osborne slams Nara's quiz for trivialising misconduct allegations. Jamie Osborne has criticised Britain's National Association of Racing Staff for publishing a spoof Christmas quiz to its members that highlights 12 serious allegations the organisation has dealt with in the past year. And then on the back, it's a taste of things to come. Promotion favourites test Premier League credentials at Arsenal. So Arsenal playing Leeds tonight, apparently for the first time in 8 years, 7 years, 8 years? 9 years. Thierry Henry scored the last time.
On his comeback in 2012.
There you go, 2012, yeah. We heard that in the office. We're stealing these lines.
I do remember that. Yeah.
All right, okay.
It was,
I completely saw it from the office.
It was a glorious moment. The two comebacks that Arsenal tried to make happen this decade, or last decade at this point, Henry and Sol Campbell. One worked out relatively well in Henry, and then Sol Campbell brought him back. I don't know. Anyway, the Daily Telegraph. Teenage sensation. Liverpool's 18-year-old wonder boy Jones seals Merseyside derby win with superb strike, and Mourinho avoids scare. Moura earns Spurs a second shot at Middlesbrough.
The back page of the London Times. Super Sibley gets England up for victory charge. England are up against New Zealand, I think, at the minute, are they? Don Sibley produced a breakthrough innings of 85, not out to put England in the box at Newlands yesterday. The Warwickshire opener playing in his 4th test. Scored 79. It doesn't say who they're against. Oh, it's in Cape Town. Sorry, there you go. It's obviously against South Africa. Teenagers FA Cup stunner decides Derby. That's the same one. So Curtis Jones had a sensational goal settle yesterday's Merseyside derby was beyond the midfielders' wildest dreams.
The Guardian leads with that story. Jones jumps for joy. Bigger than a dream, says local hero after scoring derby winner. And who had Michael Oliver as the first referee to use the VAR screen? He was the one. He made history yesterday. Crystal Palace 0, Derby 1. History made as referee Oliver used a screen for VAR red. It's a wonder it's taken this long.
The Daily Mail, their back page is Corporal Jones. Did you get it? Corporal Jones. Is there a famous Corporal Jones? Am I missing the...
There is now.
Teen ace Curtis wins Derby with stunning strike. That's the headline on Dominic King's piece. And they obviously also have a picture there. Boris organised a lift to Croker. Irish provinces' Euro hopes hobbled by injuries. Injuries is also one of the themes that's come through over the course of the weekend. It's obviously a very busy football schedule, and James Milner went down just 10 minutes into the game against Everton. Jurgen Klopp very pissed off with both himself and the fact that the fixtures have come so thick and fast. And Munster also significantly damaged after the weekend. Niall Scannell, Finian Wycherley and Andrew Conway all forced off in the loss to Ulster on Friday, where they're absolutely hammered, 38-17. James Ryan was subbed off after 25 minutes. He suffered a calf injury. It's obviously important for scrummaging and general running round. And not to mention the situation in Connacht, where they are the walking wounded at the moment.
The back page of the Sun is Klopp kids a Kurt above. Teen hero hid illness to play. And final hurrah, Kilkenny will take on Tip for the first time in the All-Ireland Club Senior Hurling Championship final. That's an interesting stat. This one as well, Iran strike Cup fears. So fears over the 2022 World Cup in Qatar have grown after a weekend of tension between Iran and the USA. So Qatar is Iran's only major ally in the region, a stance which has put greater concerns, I'd imagine, around the World Cup, and the blockade between Saudi Arabia and Qatar which has kind of put a little bit of a cloud over the chances of this World Cup going ahead. A slight cloud, I should say. Those clouds aren't going anywhere, to put it mildly.
And we have the Irish Examiner for you. So birthday present, Majestic Mar breaks Hurley, taking and converting free, makes a block in the clearance, gets a possession back, points with half a boss on the day he turned 31. Next up for Boris Ali, TJ Reid and Ballyhale. So 5 pages of hurling action at the start of it. Club Magic, the perfect antidote to wash away January blues. It feels like it's a good thing that these games are on January, no? Certainly when the weather's as good as this.
That's for sure, and it'll be even better when they get pushed back into December again and to get it all done in the one calendar year and that these players can actually go and enjoy Christmas after perhaps winning in All-Ireland.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be perfect, and yeah, like clearly I think we've arrived at a point where the greatest chance of games getting called off will be in February and March. They are 2 worst months in this country, and you often have the trudging weather that they would have for the All-Ireland Club semi-finals in those months. So the more pushes back, the better. But there has been some concerns about whether or not they can get it all played in the one calendar year. Those many concerns tend to be overcome pretty easily when you've got a final date set in stone, because quite often these things develop and get out of hand when there isn't something set in stone. But
some breaking news confirmed overnight by the AFL. Adelaide Crows have confirmed that Irish All-Star Cathal McShane is set to train with them for 2 weeks in January. Athletic Irish prospect Cathal McShane is set to train with Adelaide's AFL squad in January. Crows General Manager, List Management and Strategy, what a title, Justin Reid confirmed the club will fly the 24-year-old to Australia in the coming weeks. We're looking forward to Cathal joining our pre-season training programme and getting to know him a bit better. He said he has the physical attributes, coming in at a touch over 190 centimetres. He's also strong in the air and can kick on both feet. Once he lands in Adelaide, it'll provide the opportunity to understand more about our club, our philosophies and what our programme looks like. The Crows already have a Gaelic convert at Westlake's. AFLW rookie Ailish Considine won a premiership medal in her debut season with Adelaide's women's team in 2019. So there had been an assumption that he was going to be going to the Brisbane Lions because there was another former Tyrone minor there, but it turns out he's headed to Adelaide for this trial anyway. So it's no deal has been done, but there will be a 2-week training session in January for Cathal McShane. And the worst thing that happened out of all this is that he gets a holiday for 2 weeks and 2 weeks of living like a professional in Australia. You know, how bad is that?
Like, how bad is that is right. And maybe Mickey Harte will be saying, well, I need everybody in here for pre-season and everybody needs to be around and all that, but good luck to him. Let him go spread his wings, let him find out for himself.
I boobed. Conor McKenna is at Essendon, not Brisbane. It's James Madden who's at Brisbane, the Brisbane Lions.